Hey, what is going on, guys? In this video today, I'm going to be going over 5 different tips that I believe will make you guys smarter Fortnite players, and that will obviously ultimately also make you guys better Fortnite players. I love doing these types of videos because, as I discussed in the 4 ways to become a great Fortnite player video, it's really hard to teach gun skill, it's pretty hard to teach a lot of aspects of building, but IQ, which is what this video deals with, it's really possible for me to make a strong impact in your guys' games by just giving you guys a few tips. So hopefully this video will accomplish that. Enough talking, let's get into tip number 1. So the first tip that we're going to be going over in this video today is hands down the simplest and easiest tip of all 5 to complete. I seriously believe I could hand the controller to like a toddler and tell them to do what I'm about to tell you guys to do, and they'd be able to do it flawlessly. But for how easy it is, you'd be surprised how much of an advantage it could give you and how few people do it. And that is the idea of right as you're about to land, when you jump out of the battle bus, about 2 to 3 seconds before your feet hit, the roof of the building you're landing on, or the floor of the building you're landing on, or the window you're going in through, to simply do a quick 360 or 2 around, take a look at where everyone is landing in the same town as you, if they're landing far away, if multiple people are landing in the same building, if they're landing in the same building as you. It is such a simple tip that you would be shocked how few people actually do this. Like, I seriously go and watch Fortnite streams all the time of bad players, decent players, even some really good players that just constantly are not checking their surroundings as they're landing. And if you're questioning the importance of this because it really is such a simple tip, I'm going to respond with a question back to you guys. Let's just think of a hypothetical area that you're going to land in. Let's say Greasy Grove or Pleasant Park or any area that you typically land in. Are you going to play the same way if 1 enemy is landing in your town compared to if 12 enemies are landing in your town? I hope your answer is no to that question because, well, if you aren't, then that's a whole nother problem. But it's really simple. You're going to play totally different if there's only 1 guy landing in your town compared to if there's like 10 to 15 people landing in your town. And my follow-up question to those of you guys that clearly know the importance of knowing how many people are landing in your town, but also aren't checking how many people are landing in your town as you're about to land, is how the heck do you expect to know if there's only 1 guy landing in your town, 5 people landing in your town, or even 15 to 20 people landing in your town? It's super important to check your surroundings because if you play a Greasy Grove or a Pleasant Park like there's only 1 guy and there actually happens to be 15 enemies landing with you, well then you're going to take your sweet old time looting like every single weapon, ammo, and chest spawn in your starting house, and before you even have a chance to walk out the front door, you're going to get rushed by a team of 3 or 4 people, and unless you're an absolute god, die pretty much every single time. So this tip, even though it's incredibly simple, is super important to do. For those of you guys that are already doing it, just know it puts you at an insane advantage in the flukiest part of a Fortnite game, which is the beginning. And if you aren't doing it, it's so simple that you should be ashamed if it's something you don't incorporate into your game after watching this video. So that covers tip number 1. Let's get into tip number 2. So tip number 2 is actually like a 2-for-1 tip, so I guess there's technically only 4 tips, even though it's really like 5. I don't know. Let's just get into it. So tip number 2 is going to cover the idea of basically keeping a constant UAV going in your head when you get into any kind of chaotic fight with multiple people shooting at you from multiple different angles on multiple different teams, and it's just in general a super chaotic situation where you almost feel like there's no way to track every single person in the fight. If you are able to get to a point, which I personally believe I'm at, and I personally believe a lot of top players are at, where you can keep kind of like this mental count going in your head during these chaotic fights of where every single enemy is, it is going to help you so much to make informed decisions in terms of pushing, firing at people, building yourself into a square, maybe retreating back, switching to your shotgun, all of those small little things which can make you better in chaotic fights. If you're able to keep a constant count of where every single enemy is at, you'll be able to make much smarter decisions in situations where people aren't used to making smart decisions at all because it's just total chaos. This is kind of hard to do at first, but once you get used to it, you will see an instant improvement in your game. I'm going to give you an example of one of my friends who is horrible at this and how it hurts him pretty much every single game we play. I always see situations, and I'll just throw out a hypothetical one right now, where let's say there's a team of 2 in front of him and a team of 2 behind him. You know, we're squatted up, so it's not like 5 people are all firing at him. He's in a comfortable situation to where he can build like a 1-by-1 and shoot at both teams. And let's just say from the team of 2, he makes one of those guys incredibly weak. Now what he's going to do, and he does it every time, and I have no clue why, and it's such a low IQ play, is he's just going to jump down from the safety of his 1-by-1 and just run like a chicken with its head cut off straight at this player he made weak. If you're wondering what the mistake there is, well, not only is he pushing to a team of 2, which is first off a mistake, but also that team of 3 that's in front of him, that's probably waiting on someone stupid to do exactly what he just did and jump down into the open. Even though he's not pushing them, they still see an opportunity for a kill. So they are just going to absolutely light him up. And that small like second or 2 lapse of judgment where he just totally forgot where everyone was and didn't take any time to think about if the push he was about to make is smart, it's either going to get him killed, which happens most of the time, or best case scenario, he's going to lose like 100 to 150 health, which in Fortnite is a pretty bad best case scenario. So that's an example of a low IQ play that constantly happens if you're not tracking opponents and using that tracking data in your head to make informed and smart pushes upon enemies. So if you can eliminate those low IQ plays from your game, you'll see an instant improvement in your Fortnite IQ and just in general how good you are as a Fortnite player. Moving on to tip number 4, and I personally believe this is the most important tip in the entire video, so definitely pay close attention. We're going to have a discussion on learning when to fight in Fortnite, and even more importantly, learning when not to fight in Fortnite. Learning when to fight, I feel like that's something that generally most people know and pick up pretty quickly in the game. You know, obviously you want to push people when you're on like a mountain and have the high ground over them. Obviously if you see like 2 teams fighting it out, you don't want to step in until both of them are really, really weak and a few guys have been eliminated on both sides so your team can just, you know, kind of swoop in and kill the remains. But learning when not to fight, I feel like that is even more important in Fortnite, and that is mostly what tip number 4 is going to focus on. Now, one of the things I absolutely love most about Fortnite when I compare it to a game like Call of Duty is you always have the option to either fight or run away. In Call of Duty, which I know a lot of you guys come from or just have played in some capacity over the last few years, if you see a guy in an open field and he sees you in an open field, you need to shoot at him. There's no running away. You die in like 2 or 3 bullets in Call of Duty, so if you decide not to engage in that fight, unless he has the worst aim in the world, you're gonna die every single time. In Fortnite, with all the shield and the base 100 health and the weapons other than the pump and tack that don't really do a ton of damage, you pretty much in every single fight, with building especially, have an opportunity to disengage basically whenever you want if you're a good builder. And this is something that I feel people really struggle to learn when they're new to the game because of games like Call of Duty where you die so fast and it's not fight or flight, it's fight or die pretty much. I will give you guys an example that happens to me all the time. You know, I'm in a shotgun fight on the ground, maybe tilted, maybe greasy, maybe just the middle of a field somewhere, and I get absolutely cracked. You know, a guy hits me for 120 damage, and maybe I only hit him for 40 or 50. So I just went from, let's say, you know, 200 health to 80 health in a flash before I can even react. What a lot of bad players will do in this situation is they'll see that they hit for 40 or 50 and they'll just hope they can land another shotgun fight before their enemy lands another shotgun fight. And yeah, you'll maybe win these fights, you know, 30 to 50% of the time, but it's not a way to consistently get kills without dying. What a smart player will do, and what I would personally do, would be build myself out of there up into a box, or just build some kind of structure where I can hide in a corner and won't be found, heal up, whether it be with band-aids, a med kit. Small shields are best for this, but even things like big shields, which take a few more seconds to use, or even a chug jug, will work perfectly because you're hiding away, your enemy doesn't know where you are, and you can basically get back to full health or as close as possible to it. And then what happens is you've basically been hearing your enemy's footsteps the entire time. They don't know where you are. You're back to full health. You can get up onto high ground, ramp up to them, re-engage in the fight, and probably win it because you healed up, they didn't, and now you have high ground and they don't. That is a perfect example of how learning how not to fight and to disengage and re-engage in fights can make you a much, much better Fortnite player. And in my opinion, that is the most important thing to take away from this video. So definitely incorporate it in your game. Learn when to fight, learn when not to fight, and it'll make you so much better at Fortnite. So the final tip I have for you guys today, and this video is actually running much longer than I anticipated, so I'm going to try to make it quick, is learning how to use the bus path and the storm to predict where enemies are going to come from. The storm, you guys may know, that one's a little more simple. You know, it seems like a simple enough concept. You know, if the storm's coming in from the east to the west and it's taking away parts of the map like Retail Row, Dusty Divot, maybe Tilted Towers, you know, the really populated areas of the map, you're gonna want to know that most of the people that were sitting in those areas are now gonna have to run away from the storm, run from east to west, and you can use that to properly position yourself to get a lot of kills or avoid those engagements if you don't want to get into them. But the bus path is something else that I feel a lot of people put a lot less emphasis on, even really, really good players. And I believe the bus path off the rip of a game is just as good, if not a better indicator than the storm of where people are generally going to be crowded together and pushing from on the Fortnite map. So let's just think of a hypothetical bus path, and I don't even know if this is possible, so don't like hold me to it, of one that goes directly over Pleasant Park, right next to Anarchy Acres, right through Tomato Town, right through Wailing Woods, while at the same time is really far away from places like Greasy Grove, Salty Springs, Fatal Fields, Moisty Mire. It may seem like a really simple concept, but it's super important to recognize that those towns where the bus is going directly over or right next to, for that specific game, is most likely going to be super overpopulated, while the towns that the bus path is really far away from, like Greasy Grove in the example that I gave, is going to be super underpopulated. So you can use that information obviously to your benefit. If you want high kill games, you know, land somewhere like Pleasant Park for that game. Or if you're still going to land Tilted because that's always going to be super populated, you should know don't go south, you should go north to where the bus went right over. If you're someone that, you know, just cares about wins, you don't care how many kills you get, maybe you'll be interested in landing in Greasy where you know not a lot of people are going to land, and avoiding the north area of the map for as long as possible because you know that's where the most chaos is going to be going on. It's super important to like mark the bus path in the beginning of the game or just memorize it as you're coming in, because it's something that not a lot of people do, and it will give you an awesome indicator of the highly populated areas of the map, the lowly populated areas of the map, where people are going to be rotating from, and just in general make you a much better Fortnite player, like all the other tips in this video, hopefully. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, do whatever the heck you want, and I will catch you guys next time.